What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Water Cooler Talk. My name is Caleb Turner, and I'm a sports writer at KSL.com. It is Sunday, May 4th, coming up on Monday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. Great back to back here. We got May the 4th be with you for all my Star Wars people out there, and then Cinco de Mayo for all my Mexican culture loving people, including food, hopefully. So fun times here as we begin the month of May. And as far as sports go, for those who may not be as soccer inclined, you can probably turn this one off. This is going to be a pretty soccer-centric episode, with that being really the only major sport professionally going on right now in season, I should say. You could talk about, the Warriors rugby team, who I know has been playing quite well, had a win streak snapped, unfortunately, just today by DC. So tough result there for the Warriors. But this is, like I mentioned, going to be pretty soccer centric. We'll talk a little basketball as well. Um, with this, going out on Monday, we are officially 7 days out from the NBA draft lottery. May 12th is when that is all going down, which is the most important day of the year for the three teams at the top or bottom of the lottery, however you look at it, including your Utah Jazz. So 7 days away from finding out whether or not Cooper Flag will be coming to Utah. So really major stuff going on there. The timing of it is a little tough with this show. Maybe we'll kind of postpone a little bit, come at you a little bit late. We did an early episode last week, on time this week. Maybe next week we'll come a day late so that we can get the latest on what happens on lottery night, because it should be very exciting for Jazz fans. So that's something to keep on your radar. In the basketball realm, one more thing I'll mention in the basketball side of things. I've mentioned before that I'm from San Antonio, Spurs fan. Um, Greg Popovich especially stepped down as the Spurs head coach. But this also, impacts the entire NBA. The all-time winningest coach in NBA history, the longest tenured coach, 29 years or whatever it ended up being. I just turned 30 a couple weeks ago, so basically my entire lifetime, Greg Popovich has been the coach of the Spurs. Some great matchups over the years against the Jazz and other Western Conference teams, and his impact is felt throughout the NBA these days. And perhaps most importantly, when it comes to his coaching tree, I talk a lot about that, kind of the assistants that Popovich had over the years that have gone on to head coaching jobs of their own. One of them being Will Hardy, head coach of the Utah Jazz, a longtime assistant in San Antonio, was there for the last championship in 2014. It was funny, kind of going back through as I looked at, people were posting photos of Coach Pop over at those kind of championship celebrations, parades, etc. In San Antonio, it's a little unique. They hop on riverboats down the Riverwalk area, instead of a typical bus type parade. They use the river to their advantage. So, and a bunch of those photos, Will Hardy with looking a little younger, a little closer cropped hair. Right behind Coach Pop in a lot of those images celebrating that 2014 championship. So, um, interesting, relevant stuff I would say there for any NBA fan. And I think there was some speculation, with this coaching tree, that he has kind of spawned, if one of those coaches might come back to San Antonio to take his place. And that was resolved quite quickly, just within a matter of minutes, maybe an hour after the initial announcement of him stepping down and entering a front office position. The Spurs named Mitch Johnson, the official head coach. He was the interim head coach during this last season when Coach Pop was away, following his stroke. And so, any questions about whether a guy like Will Hardy or Quinn Snyder, from the Hawks, who was formerly in Utah and then before that in Austin with the Spurs G League team, whether or not they would be interested in that job, not really a question anymore. So, um, Jazz fans, if you like Will Hardy, you're safe with him. And it seems like, he signed a very long contract, 5-year contract, when he first came here just a couple years ago. So you'll have Will Hardy for the foreseeable future as you look into this rebuild. which hopefully gets very good news a week from now with the NBA draft lottery. So there's a bit of a quick little basketball update. We are in the heat of the playoffs. Just got done watching game seven between the Houston Rockets and Golden State Warriors. Warriors taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves next, who have kind of become a pseudo former Jazz team with both Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley, Nikhil Alexander Walker also up there in Minnesota. So if any of you Jazz fans are still rooting for Gobert, it could be a fun one next up against the Golden State Warriors, and Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler and the squad they've got over there. And I think a lot of Jazz fans would also be happy to learn that the Houston Rockets, including Dylan Brooks, are out of the playoffs. So there's that. And we'll see how the next couple weeks treat us as it comes to more advanced playoff games and then the lottery, like I mentioned. Still, even though there's not games going on for Jazz fans, still a lot of kind of entertaining things going on around the league when it comes to basketball. Now, as I promised, perhaps threatened slash warned to those who are not as big of fans of soccer, that's kind of what we got going on right now. I saw something interesting. I try to, read multiple outlets that we've got around here in the Salt Lake area as far as news media, sports writing, etc., sports media. And I was just kind of scrolling on the X app earlier today, and I came across a little article about the top 25 most important athletes in the state of Utah at the moment. Um, which, any kind of list like that, any kind of rankings that automatically catches your attention because it's easy to digest. You can, debate about who was placed where and if they deserve to be there. So I thought I'd take a look. Um, Written by Gordon Monson over at the Salt Lake Tribune, and I was a little surprised to see two soccer players in the top five. Ali Sentnor and Diego Luna placed in the top five of those rankings. Now, obviously, as someone who covers them on a day-to-day basis, I get it. They are two upcoming stars within the American game of soccer. Both earned major awards like young player awards last year. Diego Luna, the MLS Young Player Award. Ali Sentnor, the U.S. Soccer Young Player Award on the women's side. So I thought that was interesting because I think for as successful and promising as these two young players are, it doesn't always translate to following and kind of attention and the typical kind of things, the spotlight that maybe might surround an athlete here locally. You think of a player like Donovan Mitchell, who we just watched today in the playoffs with the Cavaliers. You think of even a Rudy Gobert, right? These kind of players that got a lot of attention when they were here in Utah. Does a player of perhaps equal talent in the game of soccer receive a similar spotlight? And I think we'll probably learn the answer to that question coming up here over the next months and years with these two 21-year-old players, Ali Sentnor and Diego Luna. Unfortunately, both of their teams are I would say not in that top five of most important or most successful teams right now in the state of Utah. Both with losing records, the Utah Royals and the RSL with losing records early in this 2025 season. Both lost games just this weekend. Royals at home to the North Carolina Courage 2-0, and RSL on the road to the Vancouver Whitecaps 2-1. Diego Luna did score a goal, a penalty for the second week in a row. Again, that Vancouver game for the lone goal. Ali Sentnor, her only goal this season has been a penalty, but alas, did not score in that game against North Carolina. Royals held scoreless for the fourth time in the last five games, I believe. They've only scored one goal in the last five games, which is not exactly what you want. So the surrounding talent might be a little tough, and the spotlight might not be there. But I think it's interesting. We talked about the experience that Diego Luna had getting to hang out with the actor Diego Luna, go to this big Star Wars Andor premiere, going to Coachella with Travis Scott. He's playing. They're both these young soccer players are playing for the senior national teams. Ali Sentnor, U.S. Women's National Team, got her first goal just a couple months ago. Diego Luna with his kind of iconic moment with the broken nose, getting an assist there. They're getting kind of this national attention, and it just makes you wonder, are our fans here in Utah understanding exactly, what they're getting the chance to see here in these soccer players? RSL fans typically very good at filling up that stadium, averaging, anywhere between 19, 20,000, and maybe 18,000 on a bad day, at America First Field. But I gotta say, the attendance at the Utah Royals games has been lacking. Last night's game, 8 p.m. on a Saturday, it was nice weather and just, a lot of empty seats. And it's tough to see when you've got a player of that caliber that can, score goals. Obviously, if they win games and she score more goals, maybe that would bring more people in. Chicken or the egg type thing. Do the fans come when the players play well, or do the players play well because the fans are cheering them on? An interesting thing to think about as we go forward. Unfortunately, you will not get that chance this week with both teams hitting the road once again. Utah Royals with a tough stretch, a couple road games in a row, heading to Angel City in LA, um, and then taking on over on the opposite side of the country, the Washington Spirit, Trinity Rodman's team, also Ashley Hatch's team, former BYU women's soccer player Ashley Hatch. Both out injured right now, but certainly a couple very, very good teams there in Angel City and the Washington Spirit. And it does not get any easier when the Royals return home to take on Orlando, who has been just one of the most dominant teams over the last few years in the NWSL. But a fun opportunity nonetheless for local fans here in the Salt Lake area and the Utah area to go to America First Field, head up to Sandy, check out a really good team in Orlando, and hopefully some good play from players like Ali Sentnor, like Mandy McGlynn, the goalkeeper, also a U.S. women's national team talent mainstay over the last few months. She's fighting to be the starter for the women's national team, replacing Alyssa Nair in goal for the USWNT. So there she had 5 saves last night. Mandy McGlynn 5 saves. There was a missed penalty, so there's still exciting stuff going on. Even if they're not scoring goals, you can still see the talent. So mark that in your calendars. 3 weeks from now, Royals back in town for that game against Orlando. And RSL finishing up a pretty lengthy road trip. Fans have not had a chance to see Diego Luna here in town over the last few weeks, as they've played three in a row on the road, and they'll finish up that road trip in Dallas this upcoming week before returning home for what should be a pretty sweet matchup against Portland on Wednesday of next week, the first midweek match of the season for RSL, Wednesday, May 14th, for those who want to go and check out what has become a pretty solid little rivalry between RSL and the Portland Timbers. And I don't think this instance will be any different. I think we'll get to see some fun soccer being played and hopefully some goals. Diego Luna, I should add, with that penalty this weekend in Vancouver, up to 6 goals on the season, leading RSL by a pretty wide margin. Unfortunately, no other player on RSL has more than 1 goal this season in MLS play. So Diego Luna, 6 goals is great, but you hope to see maybe a little more from his teammates as well, to kind of catch up, spread the wealth, spread the load a bit as they entered into this next stretch, which will be tough. I mentioned the midweek game, so you've got a Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday lineup there, 3 games in 8 days type situation, which is, that's when the rubber hits the road. That's when things get real, and we'll see the depth of this RSL team to see if other guys are able to score goals and can step up when it's needed most. Not just Diego Luna and Ali Senna who are doing all the work on these teams, right? Despite being very exciting young players, they can't do it all. And I had the thought last night as I'm watching this RSL team, watching Diego Luna, they're struggling to score. That penalty didn't come until stoppage time after the 90th minute. And as there are with any, up and coming talented player in the United States in MLS, there's always rumors about going to Europe, playing for a bigger team, whether that be in the Premier League, You look at teams like, Manchester United, Manchester City, etc. You look at Germany, you look at Spain, obviously great teams there with Madrid and Barcelona. Um, and Diego Luna has mentioned in the past that he would like to play in Europe. RSL made a deal just less than a year ago to send Andreas Gomez, another up and coming player, to France to play in Europe because that was a dream of his and he wanted to make that happen. And so they were able to get a good return for him. And I was thinking, that move for Diego might be coming sooner than some fans would like it to come. His value is rapidly increasing, and um, I don't know how much of that decision would have to do with how Real Salt Lake is playing, but I have to imagine that if RSL is struggling to win games, if the players around him aren't raising him up, aren't kind of providing that the complementary play that he needs, you would think that it would become more tempting to make this the time to make the move to Europe. I'm sure that teams are calling. I'm sure that there are teams interested in him. And RSL, the front office people, you look at a guy, a sporting director, GM type role. Kurt Schmidt has said, there have been offers, but it hasn't been the right timing for Diego. But when that matches up, when they get an offer and it's in a place that Diego is interested in playing, he feels like it's the right time, that deal is going to happen. So as far as those two things matching up, I think it could happen sooner rather than later. They start getting offers in the $10+ million range. They got 11 million for Andreas Gomez last year. I'm not sure that an offer will be turned down. In fact, as we approach summer, the off season for the European clubs, the June to August window is kind of when they look to move players. And if by that time RSL is not in a competitive place, if they're not, looking like they're going to be in the playoffs, make a run in the playoffs, um, come August, there's that little break where you have the Nation Leagues tournament with Mexican clubs. If that break comes and the offers are coming over the summer for Diego to start up next fall, the next European season with a team over there, I think that could certainly happen. So you look at, August, come August when the MLS season resumes in late August, is Diego Luna here? I cannot promise that. And so, I guess the moral of the story is enjoy him while he's here. Understand that this isn't going to last forever. If he's a top three or four most exciting, most important player, according to Gordon Monson, the Salt Lake Tribune, here in the state of Utah, obviously he's got a lot of attention, a lot of spotlight, and a lot of people who would like his talents because he can score goals, he can assist, he can dribble, um, the breaks off people, and it'll be an interesting next few months. Let's just say that. Ali Sentinor, maybe a bit of a different situation. The women's game, the transfers, the trades over to Europe, maybe not quite as frequent or robust as they are on the men's side of the game. But we're still seeing it. You look at players like Naomi Girma. You look at players like Lindsey Horan. She has another main name now. She got married. I apologize. But they've made the move to Europe, and it's been pretty profitable for the teams, the NWSL American teams that send them there. So who's to say? If offers come from England for Ali Sentinor, I don't know. I can't guarantee anything. And the most interesting thing about the Ali Sentinor situation, I would say, is she was drafted by the Utah Royals with the number one pick that they were gifted because they were this new expansion team, had no players coming in, so they had to. There was the NWSL had to give them a bit of a leg up to get some players here to Utah. They give them the number one pick, and it's Ali Sentinor. She comes here, she's great. Just a few months later, the draft is completely abolished in the NWSL. Both the expansion draft and the entry draft, the college draft, the normal draft that we all think of, that no longer exists in the NWSL. And so, if Ali Senor had stayed in college a year later and had decided to turn pro this season, it would not have been a guarantee that the Utah Royals could have brought her here with the number one pick. It's more of a free agent situation. She would have had to pick you the Utah Royals instead of the Utah Royals picking her. And I asked a couple of the front office people, the decision makers with the Utah Royals, if they felt confident that they could have still brought Ali Sendor here without the draft, and they said yes. They thought the the facilities, the style of play, the plan that they outlined to Ali, even though she was drafted here, she wanted to come here, which I think is an important, I think that's real. I think an important aspect of all drafts is that the player still has to want to play in the place where they're drafted to. You've heard situations in the NFL with Eli Manning and other players who have said if they get drafted somewhere, they're not going to go there. Now, I'm not sure a women's soccer player would do that. I'm not sure an NBA player would do that, right? But I think it's kind of an interesting what if there hadn't been a draft, would Ali Sentnor be here? That's no longer here. The Royals were able to sign a pretty promising rookie, a goalkeeper out of the University of Texas, Mia Justice. She has not played yet because Mandy McGlynn is the starter. She's a national team talent. But Mia Justice is still very young, probably around 20, 21 years old. And Mandy McGlynn is closer to 26, 27. So in time, who knows? Mia Justice could kind of grow into that replacement if Mandy McGlynn were to, either age out or move on somewhere else. So I guess the moral of that is that, they were still able to pick up a pretty decent rookie. It was just in one position. It's not a starter right now like Ali Sentner was last year, not necessarily a star level player like Ali is. But they were still able to kind of bring in some college players, and it'll be interesting going forward in the NWSL to see how the balance of talent works out, bringing players in from college. Do they gravitate more toward a bigger market like LA or New York or Miami? Or does it kind of even out? And do players want to go to a quote unquote smaller market like Utah to prove themselves because they think the coaching is better, they like the teammates, they for example, a big selling point they like to share here in Utah is the training facility, which was just built last year, adjacent as kind of an extension to the RSL training facility in Harriman. The women have their own locker room, weight room, lounge, etc., all that. So I think that's been a big talking point, a big selling point. Obviously, the Royals have not, they've still been able to bring in pretty major players. Bring in Mina Tanaka from Japan, who ends up being the MVP of the She Believes Cup with the Japan national team. You bring in a couple great Spanish players in Claudia Sornosa, Ana Tejada, Nuria Rabano, and a couple Scandinavian players as well, a Danish player, a Dutch player. So the kind of the breadth of talent is there, and it seems like the Royals, despite people around the world maybe not knowing what Utah is, still being able to kind of sell themselves as an attractive option for soccer as an idea. Now, a matter of putting that practice and that idea onto the field and producing a competitive product that can get into the NWSL playoffs is a different story. Obviously, it's still very early in this season and early in the expansion team with the Royals just being a little bit over a year old. So um, much to come in the future. I'm sure, at least for the next year or two, Ali Sentinel will be a part of that future, and it will be interesting to see how they build around her. If they're able to get some players back from the injury list, their captain Paige Monahan has been out for several months now since the first game of the season. A couple of their best defenders, Kaylee Reel, and a new midfielder that they just signed in the offseason but has not been able to play coming off ACL rehab, Alex Loera. I've been told might be the missing piece, the missing cog in this machine of the Utah Royals that could really turn things around as we head into an interesting stretch here in the summer. It was just a year ago, like less than a year ago, last June, that Amy Rodriguez was let go as the Utah Royals coach after winning just one of her first 15 games or something like that, I believe. Jimmy Coonrats took over midseason after being brought in as an assistant from Belgium and had a great finish to the season. Wales almost made the playoffs, but a rough start to the 2025 season. In fact, Coonrat's current winning percentage this season is the exact same as Amy Rodriguez's winning percentage was when she was fired last year in June at 14%. So not where you want to be. Seems like there's some leash there, some leeway for Jimmy. And if there were to be a change, you could rest assured that it wouldn't be until the end of June, like they did with Amy Rodriguez. So let's say till now, Jimmy has until the end of June to get another win and rise above that 14% winning percentage. Maybe a player like Alex Loera coming in can change that. We shall see. That's your sports update for this week here in the state of Utah. A lot of exciting things coming up. Like I mentioned, NBA Draft Lottery will be coming to you after that with some live discussion, analysis, updates on what's going to happen with the Utah Jazz first round pick. Will it be Cooper Flag? We will likely find out in a week's time. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you guys next time.